Should anyone else want to color pen? They're writing each step first, and then we're going to go over it. All right, so first step is rearrange the inequality so that y is by itself on one side. So basically going from standard form to slope-intercept form. And so first I'm going to write out my equation right here. And what letter do you always need to get by itself? Y, right? And so first I need to move 2x over. Who can raise their hand and tell me how I would go about moving 2x over, David? Subtract 2x on both sides. Beautiful. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. Alex, can I combine those? Can I get 10 minus 2x and get 8x? Why not? They don't have the same last name. One has a variable, one doesn't. So I'm going to rewrite it, but don't drop that negative. I'm going to put 2x first with negative because it's subtractive. Plus 10 because 10 is positive. So I'm just basically going from standard to slope-intercept. Then, how do I get y by itself? Divide each term by -5. Now, the difference is here. When you're dividing by a negative coefficient, what happens with the inequality sign? It flips. So remember, when you're dividing by negative, the sign flips. So see how the y has a negative coefficient? That's coming back to us now.
Wait, what's that?
This 5, -5, because this is negative, the sign's going to flip.
Right.
If that was positive, it wouldn't flip. And so I end up getting y, now the sign's changed. Now, to reduce a fraction, don't turn it into a decimal ever. To reduce a fraction, what button on your calculator can you click? That gives you a fraction? ND. So put -2 over -5 in your calculator. Or some of us can do it in our head. It reduces, what's a negative over a negative? Negative divided by a negative? Positive. So we're going to keep it positive 2 this x. So if you put ND and you just put negative 2 over -5, it reduces 3. Then what's 10 divided by -5? That's my first step. First step was just to get y by itself. Next thing is exactly what we did on the bell ring. So the next thing I'm going to do is see, okay, when I'm looking at that, what is my y-intercept, or the constant that's by itself? -2. Don't drop that negative, right? So I'm going to put that in blue because this is in blue. And so I'm going to plot -2 first. That's my y-intercept. Then I'm going to do the slope, which is the rise over run, which is what we've been doing. So since it's positive, am I going up or down? Up, right? So I would go up 2 over 5, and always to the right. So up 2 over 5, plot. You can even extend it by going down 2 over 5. Don't draw a line through it. Then, to graph the line, this is where it's a little bit different. It's going to be a dotted line. Remember how we have open circle, closed circle? If it's an open circle or it's just greater than or less than, we actually use a dotted line because it doesn't include that answer. It's like how it is, right? See how it has a line underneath it right here? This is going to be a solid line. And how I remember it, see how this literally is a solid line underneath it? That's telling me make it a solid line. So you're going to draw now a solid line that goes through those points. And what that means is it includes all those answers that fall on that line. Then the only difference now is now we're going to have a bunch of answers. It's not going to just be like one solution. It's going to be a lot of solutions. And so how I figure out where my solutions are, see how y is being eaten? You guys see that? So is y greater than or less than? Greater than. So if it's greater than, I shade above the line. And how I remember that is I kind of draw a little man like that. And if y is greater than, I shade above his head. So you can take a highlighter, you can use whatever you have. And you're shading all above this line. All of these are considered solutions. So you're going to shade above this line because y is being eaten. So y is greater than, so I'm going to shade above the line. If y was less than, I would shade below. And some people don't remember like what is above, what is below. I just draw a little man, and if it's above his head, it's greater than. I would just shade above his head. If it was less than, I would shade below his head. So that's what the graph looks like. The last thing you want to do, and you don't have to do this every time, but I would suggest test taking skills on a test to make sure you're correct, is checking your work. And so what I would do is I always use 0, 0. And so if it's a solution, see how all of these are colored in? These are all solutions, including the line. So I'm going to take this point, and I know since it's colored in, it should be a solution, right? And so I'm going to just plug it into my original equation and make sure it makes sense. And so I'm going to plug 0. You can use whatever point is in the shaded. I'm going to use 0, 0 because it's pretty easy. So I'm rewriting the original equation. What's your x value in 0, 0? And your y? 0. What's anything times 0?
0.
0. What's 0 minus 0?
0.
Is 0 less than or equal to 10? Yes. So I know I've shaded it incorrectly. So you're finding one point that falls on the shaded region, and you're just plugging it in for x and y and making sure it's right. Does that make sense? And so you don't need to do this every time, but just to check your work, especially like on the check for understanding, always use the original before you change it, because maybe you changed something incorrectly. So like if 0, 0 wasn't right, you might have done some math error. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
If the sign was facing the other way, it was facing that way instead of the line.
Yeah, so you would shade, if that was the case, I would shade below his feet. Yeah, and we're going to be practicing with that today. So here are just some examples. We'll do one together, and then you're just practicing this skill for a little bit, and then we're going to go back to the word problems. So we do need to remember those word problems because we're doing system of equations and inequalities. We do need to know those words. So I'll do one with you. I'll do this one right here. X plus 3y is greater than or equal to 3. So I'm going to do that one with you. So first, I see it's in standard form. I see y is not by itself. So
I got a question.
Yeah,
What do you do with on the line?
just graph it, just like if you were like the do now. So who can raise their hand and tell me what's the first thing that I would do?
Subtract.
Subtract what?
You subtract 3. 1.
1 what?
1.
1x, good, because you want 3y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides. Then when I do this, I end up getting positive 3y is greater than or equal to negative 1x plus 3. Then how do you get y by itself? And when you do that, does the sign flip? No, because see how the coefficient's not negative? I don't flip the sign. So it still stays like this. And so first thing you're going to have to do is figure out, okay, what's my y-intercept? 1. Then what do you do? Down one. Perfect. And I'm going to go the other way too. Now, is it a solid line or a dotted line? Yeah, so I went down 1, but to go to, like, see how I want to extend the line, you just do the opposite, and it just extends the line. So when I'm reading it left to right, it's going down. Then since it's a solid line, because it has this tells me make it solid, I made this solid. If it wasn't, it would be a dotted line. Then, is y being eaten or y not being eaten? It's being eaten, so I know I'm shading above. So I'm going to draw my little man right here, and I know it's above his head. So I'm going to take my highlighter crayon, whatever you guys want to use, and you're shading above. And so remember, all these points on here count also. To check your work, you can take any of these points that are shaded in and plug it into the original equation and make sure it makes sense. So for example, I can plug in, you can, but see how it's not shaded? It wouldn't be a solution. So you can do that and be like, I know 0, 0 is not a solution, so it shouldn't work when I plug it in. Or you can plug in any that do work and make sure it works. So if you do want to plug in 0, 0, you know it's not a solution. It's not colored. So when I plug it in, it should not be true. What is 0 plus 0? 0. Is 0 greater than or equal to 3? No, so that one, I'm right. It should not be a solution. If that's going to confuse you, choose one that is a solution. Okay. So I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to work on maybe 2 or 3 of those answer keys in the back behind Rashida. And then we're just going to go to a few word problems. So we're going to work on that and then go through a few word problems and take our check for understanding. And so tomorrow we're going to be doing systems of inequalities. So make sure you get this down because tomorrow we're graphing 2 of them. That's what we're leading up to.